She was 9 years old when the world gave her a name that wasn't hers, and everything that came after it was either the fulfillment of someone else's dream or the quiet, determined building of her own. Her name is Celine Tam, a Hong Kong-born singer who stood on one of the world's biggest stages as a child and made 40 million people stop what they were doing. By the time she was 18, the rumors had built up for years that the pressure had broken her, that the controversy around her family had cost her everything, that she'd walked away from music entirely. This is the story of what she actually confirmed, and why it changes how you understand everything that happened on that stage in 2017. Before the auditions, before the television cameras, before any of it, there was a car ride. Celine Tam was 3 years old. Her father, Steve Tam, a music professor and vocal coach, was playing music as they drove. "My Heart Will Go On" came through the speakers, the Celine Dion song from Titanic, and from the back seat, his 3-year-old daughter started singing it. Every note, every phrase. He pulled over. He couldn't speak. Steve Tam had already made one decision that spoke volumes about what he believed was possible. He had named his daughter after Celine Dion, not as a tribute exactly, but as a declaration, the kind of thing you do when you believe, before you have any real evidence, that a person is going to be extraordinary. His second daughter, born later, he named Dion. Both halves of the same icon, both signals of the same ambition. After that car ride, he started teaching her. Not casually, seriously. He ran singing academies in China, and he understood from the beginning that whatever his daughter had was not something that could be left to develop on its own. She needed structure. She needed technique. She needed to be in front of audiences before fear had any chance to set in. By age 4, she was performing publicly. By 5, she had her first real competition, the Let's Sing Kids contest in China, where she performed "You Raise Me Up" by Secret Garden. The audience that day saw something they were not prepared for. A child with a voice that had no business being that controlled, that full, that emotionally present. She walked away with a nickname that would follow her for years. Little Giant Lung. She won 8 championships in a single year. She performed at the Hong Kong Philharmonic Orchestra music show. She performed at the China City Spring Festival evening on New Year's Eve 2014. She was a guest star at a concert in Shanghai, invited to sing "Let It Go" from Frozen. National Chinese television, American television, events across multiple countries, all of this before she turned 10. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The question going into America's Got Talent Season 12 was never really about whether Celine Tam could sing. She was 9 years old when she walked onto that stage in 2017, and she made a choice that would either define her or limit her. She sang "My Heart Will Go On," the song most associated with her namesake, the song she had first sung in a car at the age of 3. It was either going to read as the most natural thing in the world or as a child being handed a script she hadn't written. The judges voted yes before she'd finished. All 4 of them: Howie Mandel, Mel B, Heidi Klum, and Simon Cowell. The crowd was on its feet. Backstage, her family was crying. What happened next moved the story forward in a way that nobody planned. When the judges heard the full story, that both she and her younger sister had been named after Celine Dion, that her father had started training her at 3, that she had been performing on international stages since she was 5, the audition became something more than just a performance. It became a narrative. The internet picked it up immediately. Her audition video was viewed over 42 million times. That made it Hong Kong's top trending YouTube video of the year. She returned for the judge cuts and performed "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You" by Michael Bolton. Guest judge Laverne Cox pressed the golden buzzer. That sent Celine directly to the quarterfinals, bypassing the usual elimination rounds, and it made her the first Chinese contestant in the show's history to receive a golden buzzer on America's Got Talent. She made it to the semifinals. She was eliminated before the finals, and in the weeks that followed, the conversation began to shift, because the story of Celine Tam was never going to be as simple as "girl with big voice makes it big." And that's when the decision was made, the one nobody around her saw coming. Going back to school in September 2017 was the right call. Celine Tam said it herself. She was happy to see her friends, happy to be home, happy to return to a life that had structure beyond cameras and performance schedules. But the controversy that emerged around her family that year was harder to return from. When her father released his own album shortly after her World's Got Talent run in 2019, the timing became a flashpoint. Accusations surfaced in China that he had been using her television appearances to elevate his own profile and his singing academies. A local celebrity alleged he had poached students from other teachers and charged them 5 times the standard rate. His claimed doctorate came under public scrutiny. The combination created a wave of negative press that landed directly on Celine's reputation, not because she had done anything, but because in China, family reputation and personal reputation are not cleanly separated. Her father addressed it publicly. He acknowledged the criticisms, said he would step up his efforts to learn and improve, and acknowledged his past mistakes. But the damage to the story around Celine was real. At the exact moment she should have been building on the momentum from 2 golden buzzers in 2 different Got Talent franchises, the noise around her family was louder than her voice. The rumors started around this time, that she was done, that the pressure had become too much, that a child who had been placed in front of the world at the age of 3 couldn't sustain a serious career once the novelty of her age wore off, that the name Celine, handed to her before she could speak, was a burden that had never really fit. Most people who know this story stop here, but the real story starts right now. What Celine Tam did in 2019 is the answer to every rumor that had been building since her AGT elimination. She went back, not to America's Got Talent, not to the stage that made her famous in the West. She went back to China, to the World's Got Talent competition broadcast on Hunan television, and she did something that most people in her position would never have attempted. She performed an original song. Who I Am was written and composed by Celine Tam herself. She was 11 years old. She did not cover Celine Dion. She did not reach for the comfort of the material that had already worked. She walked onto a global stage and asked the audience to listen to something that had come entirely from her, not from her father's ambition, not from her namesake's catalog, not from the child prodigy narrative that had been following her for 6 years. The judges were stunned. One judge stood up and pressed the golden buzzer. What that moment meant, stripped of the production and the drama, was this. She had a voice at 11 that was measurably more developed than the voice she'd had at 9. She had written a song with real structure. She had walked into a competition where she was expected to repeat her past and instead introduced a future. She made the top 8 in World's Got Talent, becoming the youngest finalist in the competition's history. She did not win, but she had never been competing for the same thing everyone else was. And if you think that was surprising, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. Between 2019 and 2022, Celine Tam largely stepped back from the kind of visibility that had defined her childhood. She was in school, she was in Hong Kong, and she was doing the kind of work that doesn't generate headlines. Reading, studying, growing into an identity that wasn't built entirely around the capacity of her lungs. At 14, she was admitted to the University of Hong Kong's Academy for the Talented. That is not a program for people coasting on past success. It is a selective academic track designed for students with exceptional intellectual and creative ability. Getting in as a 14-year-old requires application, recommendation, and demonstrated range well beyond a single area of accomplishment. She took up badminton. She went hiking. She swam. Her Instagram during this period became a place for book recommendations as much as anything else. The child who had performed at the China City Spring Festival evening in front of national audiences was quietly building an interior life that she had never been given the space to develop in public. She also wrote a comic book. The fact that a child prodigy known entirely for her voice quietly became a published author is the kind of detail that gets lost in the noise of "where is she now" content. But it matters because it tells you something about who she was becoming when nobody was watching. She never talked about this publicly, until now. On September 2017, 6 days after Celine Tam was eliminated from AGT, she tweeted something that landed exactly as intended. "No matter how far I'll go, my heart will go on." The line was a deliberate blend of 2 of her AGT performances, a thank you, a declaration, and a message in a bottle sent in the direction of one specific recipient, and the recipient received it. Celine Dion replied directly on Twitter, told Tam she had done an amazing job, and invited her and her family to her Las Vegas show. It was the dream the 9-year-old had carried out loud since her audition. She wanted to meet Celine Dion. She had said so on television. The world had watched her say it, and Celine Dion, who had been watching, came through. Reports at the time suggested that Tam would attend Dion's Las Vegas New Year's Eve performance, with speculation about a possible joint appearance. What that encounter looked like in full has never been publicly documented in detail, but the exchange itself, two people named after the same artistic ambition, one at the end of a legendary career and one at the very beginning of something, is one of the more quietly remarkable moments in the entire story. What it confirmed for Celine Tam was something she had already been told by the trajectory of her life. The name her parents gave her was not a cage, it was a compass. Whether she chose to follow it in a straight line or carve her own path around it was always going to be her decision. Here's what the comments kept asking, and here's the answer they never got. Until now, Rumours had always been a version of the same question. Could a child who had been famous for a specific thing, a voice, a name, a television moment, become something larger and more durable? Or would she be a footnote, a remember her clip that surfaces every few years when nostalgia algorithms serve up old AGT auditions? By 2025, Celine Tam was 17 years old, still in Hong Kong, still singing. That much NBC confirmed publicly that year. But the more complete picture had been assembling itself across years of choices that almost nobody had been watching. She had earned a place at one of Hong Kong's most selective academic programs. She had written and published a comic book. She had composed and performed original music at the age of 11 on a global stage. She had survived a public controversy around her family, without losing her own footing. She had made a friend out of her idol. She had chosen, repeatedly and deliberately, to grow in private, rather than remain visible and static. What she confirmed, not in a press release, not in a single interview, but through the accumulated evidence of the years, was the thing that the Rumours had always been designed to undercut. She was not a product of her father's ambition. She was not a cover act frozen in 2017. She was not broken by the pressure or erased by the controversy. She was building something, on her own terms, in her own time. At this point in the story, most people walked away. What she did instead is the part nobody talks about. As of 2026, Celine Tam is 18 years old. The girl who was 9 when she first stood in front of those AGT judges is now an adult, one who has spent the years between then and now doing something that the entertainment industry rarely allows for child performers. She grew up before anyone could monetize the process. She has an active YouTube channel, an Instagram presence, and a following that has remained remarkably loyal through years of low-key activity. The audience that found her in 2017 did not forget her. They followed along with the quieter posts, the book recommendations, the glimpses of a life that had more dimension than the girl with a big voice headline ever captured. The original music she wrote at 11 pointed in a direction. The academic program she was admitted to at 14 pointed in another. Neither one is inconsistent with a future that is serious, sustained, and self-directed. The most honest reading of where Celine Tam is right now is that she is at the beginning of an adult career that she has been quietly preparing for since she was old enough to understand that preparation was the only thing that would outlast the moment. The rumors said she was gone. The evidence says she was just getting started.
The thing about growing up in public is that the public decides what you are before you do.
They named her the Celine Dion of Hong Kong before she turned 10, and every conversation about her since has been, in some form, an argument about whether she could live up to or escape from that label. What the full arc of her story makes clear is that she was never interested in either option. She was interested in becoming something that didn't have a pre-existing name, a songwriter who also sings, a student who also performs, a person who also happens to have an exceptional voice. The next chapter for Celine Tam is genuinely open. She is 18, academically accomplished, creatively active, and carrying a platform that most artists spend their entire careers trying to build. The question is what she builds on top of it. So here's what I want to know from you. Do you think Celine Tam should lean back into the stage, competitions, covers, the visibility? Or do you think the path she's been quietly walking, original music and academic achievement, is the one that actually leads somewhere lasting? Drop it in the comments because people are not going to agree on this one.